When you're learning how to mix audio, it's easy to fall into the trap of seeking out the correct answers to certain mixing problems, like what EQ settings should I use for vocals, or what's the best reverb, or what ratio should a compressor be set at. But the truth is, you can't learn how to mix audio this way, and I'm going to tell you why. Think about it this way. Let's say you're learning how to bake a cake. Now you could jump onto Google and type in what temperature should I set the oven at, or how much baking powder should I use for a cake. But even if you found an answer to those questions, they probably wouldn't help you. Yeah, they might give you a general starting point, but those kind of general answers that pay no regard to the ingredients you're using or the result that you're after, they're close to useless. And it's the same with mixing. You're never going to find a compressor setting that works for every single vocal, because every vocal is different. Every vocal recording is going to be a different loudness, going to have a different dynamic performance. It's different every time. The ingredients are different. And it depends on the result you're after. Is it a background vocal? Is it a main vocal? Do you want a dynamic performance or something a bit more compressed, a bit more heavily compressed? You'll also find EQ cheat sheets out there that will give you specific EQ settings for certain instruments, like they might suggest putting on a high shelf boost on vocals. And when you're mixing kick, it might say you've got to cut out a bunch of mids, for example. But what if your vocal recording is already bright to begin with? Or what if your kick recording, you really need that body in there for the mix that you're making? The second thing to avoid is mixing with your eyes. Now, the people that are listening to your music after it's mixed, they're not going to be listening with their eyes, they're listening with their ears. And if you're making mixing decisions based on what you see, for example, you've got a frequency analyzer on a guitar track and you're EQing to try and flatten that frequency response, you're not going to be judging that guitar track on what really matters, what it sounds like. It's like if you baked a cake and judged it by what it looked like and what it smelt like rather than what it tasted like. And finally, you've got to start at the source. If you find that your mixes time after time are sounding really bad and you feel you spent a lot of time learning how to mix and you just can't get it right, then it's worth thinking about the material you're working with, because no amount of mixing can make a rubbish recording sound great. There are, however, plenty of useful tips and materials that will teach you things the right way. So how should you approach learning mixing instead? Well, it starts with accepting the fact that you can't skip steps. Okay, you've got to learn the fundamentals of mixing, the fundamentals of what makes a balanced mix, what makes a mix sound exciting, how to make things sound clear. You've got to learn the plugins and the tools like the back of your hand so that you know which ones to grab and which settings to adjust so that you can achieve that balance. To go back to that cooking analogy again, you need to know what ingredients work together. When a sauce has thickened enough, how much seasoning is the right amount? Think about it. The person who you're asking what settings you should use for your mixes, even if they could listen to your mix it themselves and give you a recipe for all the plugins and settings they use to make it sound great. Would you really want that? It may let you replicate their mix more or less, but it probably wouldn't be transferable to your next mix that you mixed yourself. And as I mentioned, make sure you're starting off with quality ingredients to begin with. If you're recording and mixing your own stuff, work on capturing clean and rich recordings first before you worry about mixing it. Otherwise, it's going to be like trying to bake a cake with chalk instead of flour. And I've said this before, but it's really important. Mixing is an art form. It may be a technical process, but it requires artistic vision and decisions to bring a piece of music to life, to achieve a vision. Mixing isn't a set of rules. So to sum up, there are no specific settings or certain plugins that are gonna magically make your mix sound professional. You've got to learn the fundamentals first. And secondly, you need to start with a good recording before you can get a great mix. And thirdly, if it sounds good, it is good. Don't worry about bending or breaking some rules. On this channel, there's a huge amount of materials that will teach you things the right way. It will go through all the fundamentals and help you to learn how to be a good mixer, not just how to copy settings. And I'm going to leave a link on screen in the description now. It's a 30-minute video. It will take you through all of the fundamentals to get you started on learning how to mix the right way. And let me know in the comments section below, what's the thing that you most struggle with when it comes to mixing? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more mixing tutorials and tips and tricks. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.